If you will, come on up here. We'll start here, and then I'll give you some time to wander around the cemetery once I'm done. And this cemetery is a classic example of an old Southern plantation cemetery. They like to create this beautiful park-like setting to blunt the harsh realities of death, and it's a good example of a European-style cemetery because, of course, that's where they are from. It's a reflection of their heritage. We have three distinct styles in here. The box style that you see here are all the oldest. These date all the way from the Middle Ages, and there are no bodies in these, by the way. People see these and assume these people are buried above ground, but no, they're actually in the ground. The tabletop styles that you see also have their origins in Europe, and people were known to come to the cemetery and actually have a picnic or lunch on the table while visiting the cemetery. Now, it's not a place I'd be inclined to eat a meal, but apparently it was a practice in those days. And then you have the tablet or upright style markers that are so commonplace today. It's also an example of their wealth. In the 1700s, in the early years here, they're using relatively inexpensive material in the bottom portion here, using brick. But as the money starts to roll in, they start spending that money, and you have expensive granite and marble here. And a great example of the incredible wealth that these people have here. Now, about some of the people who are buried in here, we'll start right here with Joseph Alston. He's also buried here with his son, Aaron Burr Alston. There are a number of graves in here with more than one person buried. Now, there's three names on this grave marker here. The third one is Theodosia. Theodosia was Joseph's wife. She was also Theodosia Burr, who was the daughter of Aaron Burr, our country's third vice president, who served alongside of Thomas Jefferson. And Theodosia, when Joseph met her in the late 1700s up in New York, was this wealthy socialite and possibly one of, if not the most educated women in the country. And many men were pursuing her, but Joseph managed to win her over, and the two married in 1801 in Albany, New York. And the last stop on their honeymoon as they made their way down here to South Carolina was in Washington, D.C. for the inauguration of Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. When they got down here, Theodosia was in for culture shock. This wasn't the glamorous life she knew in New York. This was a hot, buggy environment down here. It's humid, it's a wilderness, and just wasn't the life she was accustomed to up there in New York. And from everything we can gather, it just never really seemed to adapt to life down here. They had a child a year later, Aaron Burr Alston, named after her father, and Theodosia almost died giving birth to the child and was in fairly fragile health for the rest of her life and unable to have any more children. So you can imagine, she was very close to her one and only child. The next 10 years went pretty well. They're making money growing rice, and Joseph is climbing the political ladder here in South Carolina, and in 1812, he is elected the state governor. But it turns out to be a very bittersweet year for the family because their young boy contracts malaria at the age of 10 and dies. And Theodosia has lost her one and only child. She can't have any more, and she is absolutely grief-stricken over the loss of this child. And to compound her grief, she's missing her father, who she was very close to. Aaron Burr, you may recall, was known as much as anything else for shooting and killing Alexander Hamilton in that famous duel in New Jersey, which was not against the law. However, starting a new nation out west and overthrowing Mexico was, and that landed him in court. He was acquitted because the plan never really took root. Him and a man named Blennerhassett from Ohio hatched his plan to do this, but they were acquitted, but it essentially put an end to his political career. So he went to Europe for 4 years to kind of let everybody forget about him. He comes back to New York, learns that his grandson has died. He and Joseph Alston communicate and decide it would be a good idea for Theodosia to come and visit him in New York. But there were obstacles. The War of 1812 with the British is going on, and Joseph, being the newly elected governor and the head of the militia, he can't leave the state. He has to stay here. So Theodosia and a group of people went sailing north to New York at the end of December that year to go see her father, and they were never seen or heard from again. And what happened to that boat, nobody knows to this day. There are theories that the British might have bombed the boat, some pirates might have captured it, but there was a strong storm reported off the coast of North Carolina around the time they left, and it's believed that boat probably capsized in that storm. But nobody will ever know for certain what happened there. But what we do know, Theodosia never came back, and everybody who knew Joseph Alston said after losing his wife and his child in the same year, his mental and physical state began to deteriorate. He became very depressed, and it wasn't long before they found him dead at the family townhome in Charleston at the age of 37. So in the space of about 3 years, this life that started with such promise for these three people unraveled in a hurry, and all three of them were gone. From 1816 up until 1883, when it finally sold out of the family, there were no Alstons actually living here. They were living in New York and Boston, places like that, and just paid overseers to run the plantation for them until it sold out of the family in 1883 after 153 years. Now, the epitaph on here, it covers the entire top of this box here. And it wasn't uncommon for accomplished people at that time to have these long poetic epitaphs to read like a biography or the story of their life. What's really impressive, though, if you look at this up close, it looks like it was typed off of a computer or a typewriter. It is precise as can be. These artists, these stonecutters, even took great pride in their work, signing their name in cursive, no less, down here in the corner, just like you see an artist do on a painting. So pretty amazing stuff. That is Charlotte Alston right there, Joseph's sister. She married a man, John Wilson, who became the state governor here, and another member of this family who never lived here, a man named Robert Alston, who lived over on the Petey River, was also a state governor. They also were related by marriage to Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, the Revolutionary War hero. Two of them served with him, so a lot of history with this family. The three small boxes are nieces and nephews of Joseph Alston's, ranging in ages from 2 to 4 years old. And then you have the tabletop in the back there where an Alston woman buried her husband and 5 infant children. People had a lot of children back then, but often lost half of them before adulthood because of all the disease, the flu and dysentery outbreaks. It was a harsh life back then. Childbirth is taken for granted these days. Women and children often died in the process or had stillborn, so the mortality rates for children at that time extremely high. Here is William Alston right here, Joseph's father. He lived to be 83 and outlived all 5 of his children from his first marriage. His 6th child also died. That would be Jacob Alston, under that table right there with the cracks in it. Jacob had just graduated from Yale with honors. He had a bright future ahead of him. They were celebrating his graduation over at the beach when they decided to have an impromptu horse race. Someone bet him he wouldn't ride an untamed horse. He was thrown from that horse and killed just 21 years old. So not all that different from what goes on at graduation parties today when you think about it, just a different form of transportation. You'll notice the family name in some cases is spelled with 2 L's, and in other cases is spelled with a single L, and that's because William Alston right there dropped one of the L's from the name because he had a cousin right next door by the same name. People apparently were confusing the 2 of them, so to differentiate this side of the family with that side, he dropped one of the L's from the name. William Alston with the 2 L's over there at Brookgreen, his cousin, this is his daughter right here. She married her cousin on this side of the family with a single L. So she's Mary Alston, double N, single L. She has both names. And cousins marrying cousins was a common practice at that time. These wealthy people didn't want their money getting into the hands of strangers. Almost all their marriages were arranged. Some wealthy planter didn't want his daughter marrying some poor farm boy, so these marriages like that were common at that time. Now, these 2 have 3 children buried in here. One is over there and 2 more right here, 2 twin sisters, Charlotte and Anna. You'll notice Anna, who was the last burial here in 1905, lived to be 85, and her sister lived to be 76, which was pretty uncommon at that time. Not only that, but on 2 separate occasions, they survived major hurricanes here that killed a lot of people and destroyed a lot of property. The first one came in 1822. They were over at their family beach house, and a storm came in, and it devastated the coastline over there. It wiped out almost every house and killed almost everybody. Mary, their mother here, wrote in her diary that she saw houses being torn off of their foundation and swept into the Atlantic Ocean with candlelight burning and people still inside of those houses. Back then, there is no weather channel, there's no warning systems. You don't know when these things are coming, and really, what are you going to do? You can't evacuate. Where are you going to go? Now, they were just 2 years old, so they probably had no memory of it. The second one came 71 years later in 1893. They're 73 years old now over at that same beach house, and this one has even worse results. Approximately 2,500 people died in that storm. It's one of the worst natural disasters in this country's history. The water from the Waccamaw River there and the Atlantic Ocean 3.5 miles met. The Waccamaw Neck was underwater. And that number of 2,500 is probably a conservative number because there were a lot of undocumented slave relatives and things like that living on islands and things like that around here working that were killed. It was one of the very first relief efforts by Clara Barton and the American Red Cross. It wasn't even the first hurricane that month, and it wasn't even the last one that year. But that storm was one of the first of several hurricanes that pretty much put an end to the plantation era here. The infrastructure of these plantations was devastated here from that storm. Now, not only did they live a good long life, but they survived those 2 storms. Now, the brick enclosure around the gravesite is just for decorative purposes, but you'll notice it has arches in it, and the girl's initials are engraved in those arches there. One last story, and you can take some time to wander the cemetery on your own. It has to do with that small headstone against the wall over there, which is for William Johnstone Lucas. His family decided 30 years after he died they wanted a bigger, fancier headstone in here, and that would be the one you see over there with the footstone in front of it. They didn't take that one with them. They left it leaning against the wall. And when the workers came in to fix the cemetery for the Huntingtons, they weren't sure what to do with it, so they mounted it on that stand of bricks facing the wall there. If it isn't enough that he has 2 gravestones in the cemetery, he has a memorial marker in another cemetery south of here where his wife and children are buried. So there's reminders of him all over the place. Okay, feel free to wander around. You can read epitaphs, take pictures, ask questions if you have any, and then we'll go down to the slave village next.